Hello everyone, my name is Jazz Cool. I am the president and founder of Multilingual and Philanthropic Incorporated. So today I really want to talk about a common misconception that I get often about studying abroad. People think that it's really expensive and it's an education that it's wishful thinking, but I don't know. So I really want to be able to break down that myth and actually show you that those 2 years of French you took in high school or currently are taking can actually pay off to where you can get a much more affordable education by studying abroad. So the main thing is that the main thing that attracts me to studying abroad is mainly because education in the US is so unbelievably expensive. And I say this because I completed 2 complete degrees. I remember I started at FIDM, the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, and I love my experience there, don't get me wrong, but it was just so expensive. It was about $30,000 per year in tuition when I started, and over time with inflation. And I remember when I started my bachelor's program, they said that it would be better for me to start in the summer quarter because I wouldn't be subjected to tuition increases if I started in the fall quarter. So obviously I started in the fall. I started in the summer because why would I want my tuition to go up and get into more debt? So with it being more, and I was very fortunate that I got scholarships, but that didn't cover everything. And so when looking at the price differences, it's really amazing. I remember my roommate in Los Angeles when we were there, she was originally from Italy, and she was saying that it cost her maybe about 2,000 euros to go to college per year. And I thought, I pay that sometimes per class, including materials and everything. It makes you wonder, is there other opportunities out there? Is there something better? And so with taking your foreign language skills that you're currently learning or have learned, is that can actually be your ticket to much more affordable higher education. And I say this because I have experienced the fact that I know people who study, someone who's studying in Germany, and it is basically close to free in their country. I will say that when I was looking at master's programs, and many of them were free, but then also some of them were under 1,000 euros, so under $1,000 for us, give or take, give or take with the currency exchange. But it's really affordable, and I was thinking $1,000 per year, roughly, in tuition. I can't save for that. Anyone can save for that, but in comparison to $30,000, that's going to take a longer amount of time to save, and getting loans is just a pain. So that was something that really appealed to me, as well as the fact that even in France they do have free education. And I know that I was looking at a master's program for linguistics in Belgium, and that one wasn't free, but it was under 2,000 euros for, I think it was in US dollars, I'll put it right here. It was under 2,000 US dollars, and it was actually a 1-year program. So to study for a 1-year master's program, wow, who would have heard of that? At least not in the US. And then, and even in that sense, I think that also looking at language requirements, just because we're on that topic, language requirements, that is the first thing you're going to inquire with living abroad. So especially with the visa piece. It's with the visa and then also with the education. So with visas, typically for students, I remember when I was looking at different visas for different countries, specifically in Germany, it is required to have minimum around B2 to C1 or higher, because you're being taught in this language. So that should be more of a motivation to actually really hone in on your language skills. And then also when you're looking at study abroad programs, there are some that actually do teach in in English, there's also language courses. So you can actually go to study a specific language in that country. I know someone who's a YouTuber. I will link her down below, Shay Jordan. She's actually going there for an intensive 6-month course. So there's ways for you to actually enhance your language abilities. And then also with being able to study at a university or college, or even do like an internship, you basically want to have minimum around B1, B2 just to be safe. Because you want to make sure that, obviously you're paying for an education and you want to be able to understand what you're being taught. So I remember when I was studying abroad in Paris, I knew someone who was actually going back afterwards to do a program, a full-blown program in Paris. And one of the things that they told her was that, the first semester will go easy on you with English, but after the first semester, we need you to get on board with French. And so that's a challenge, for someone who's never really invested a lot of time to getting up to that level in a language. So I know that can be a big challenge, but I think you can do it. You'll be fine. If I can do it, you can do it. It only took me about 10 years to be fluent. And even then, I'm still not fluent because there's so many different things that you learn every day. Even teaching French, I still sometimes don't. There's some things I still don't know, but it gets easier over time. And also, especially if you're living in that country and you're exposed to the language every day, eventually you can only get better. So it's nothing to really discourage you about. And also challenges are good. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you, especially for the better. I will say that when you're looking for universities or colleges abroad, you want to look at based on your interests and even especially what countries are really good at teaching specific things. I know that if you want to really study engineering of any sort, Germany is a place to be. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, they have the most amazing things I've ever seen. Have you seen their toilets? You can actually control the amount of water that goes in and out of it. And then not only that, but they're home to some of the major automobile brands. And then you also have, in France, there are so many different industries. If you really like cooking, if you really like fashion, if you really like, I've heard that they do have an industry for if you're really into aircrafts, because I know that they do have an industry there. Beauty as well, that's a very good industry that is prominent there. You want to look at what countries are known for what, and let's say you're interested in going to Japan for whatever. You want to make sure you're looking at what countries are going to be the best at specific things that you're interested in, and even at that same time, what languages are available to you. For me, I am multilingual, so it makes me have a lot. It allows me to have more options as to where I can go. So I'm not limited to where I can only go here because I only speak French. I do speak Spanish. I speak German. I do speak English. So there are other English-speaking countries. I even with other languages I'm not as fluent in, I can still actually enhance those skills. So it's not I really want to go to this country, but I don't know the language. When you're multilingual and you have interest, when you have that language interest, again, that can give you more options as to where you can go to study. I mostly recommend looking at a culture that is familiar to you or at least of interest to you. So for example, with German culture, for me, I do like German culture. I know that they're very strict about specific things and they're very direct people. So if that's something that you really like, go for it. If you're I don't like people being brutally honest to me, then you might want to pick more of a laid back type of country, so to say. So you want to enjoy your experience while you're there. For me, I love French culture because a lot of with researching the culture and how the people are, it's actually in a way similar to my personality in many cases. So I love that culture. Especially with speaking the language, it just made it a lot easier. And I love the city of Paris, and I also want to see more of France as well. Belgian culture is more laid back from what I know, because I do have a friend who still lives there, or he's from there, but he still lives there. And so if you're familiar with the culture, their food, or things that you like, makes it a lot easier to integrate into that, because I know that sometimes when you're moving to another country, it can be, oh, like I miss such and such in my country, or they don't have this. You want to be able to be culturally aware of where you are. So I think that studying abroad is much more attainable than you think that it is. It's much more easier to save money for it. And not only that, but it's a cultural experience where you get to experience life outside of your own, especially if you're coming out of high school and you want to form your own independence by being in a new environment, completely new. I also say that it allows you to, with it being more affordable, it allows you to come back with much more, you're able to start your life. You're not as bogged down with debt, especially because debt. It's March and I'm going to have to pay these student loans back again in April. So I'm telling you right now, it's a drag, but you'll be able to start your life with much more independence financially. I will also say that even though the tuition costs are affordable, you also want to make sure that you have financial means to support yourself while you're there. So that also can be attainable over a period of time in terms of savings, because I know that depending on your country, I know that in Germany, I also think in Italy, depending on what you're doing, I know with visas, they do require that if you were studying, you need to show that you have at least like studying, because studying is different than working. So if you're studying, then you're not allowed to work if you have a study visa. So they need you to prove that you have at least 10,000 euros or the equivalent in your bank account. So that's something you also have to save for. But then again, if you have financial support from your family and friends, there's so many different ways to obtain that. But like I said, $10,000 for that whole year plus the tuition, which you would probably be paying for in advance anyway, I would just say, in my opinion, that's much more obtainable than $30,000 per year. So, so those are just some things that I would just say. If you're thinking, oh, studying abroad, that just sounds so expensive, that sounds like something that that people like me don't do, I'm going to be honest with you, it will change your life, and it's much more affordable and more obtainable than you think that it is, especially if you're choosing to go back to school. It's like, you just want to make sure you have the numbers, especially because I know that finding housing can sometimes be another pain if you're not in on-campus type living situations. But I full-heartedly recommend it. I'm going to be doing it soon in my in the next year or so as I decide to further my education. And I think it's a worthwhile experience, and you never know what it could lead to. So I also encourage you, just as a disclaimer, please, if you decide to do this, you need to make sure that you are being safe. That's why I say research culture. Find someone that you know who lives there or has lived there, who can tell you this is not a great place to be. This is a great place to be. Don't be here at this time. Knowing what parts of the country to stay away from, if that makes sense. So safety is very important to really consider. So I would really just say, do your research. One thing I really do want to bring up is that one of my favorite books is The Smartest Kids in the World and How They Got That Way by Amanda Ripley, and my au pair kids thought it was a good idea to draw on that. This book actually discusses education abroad. It looks at studies based on test scores and results as to how certain countries have been deemed in their ranking as best in the education, best education system. And you'd be surprised that the number one education system in the world is actually Finland. And they say that if you want the American dream, go to Finland. And also, this book actually follows 3 different students who are from America who have studied abroad. Even the first one, her name is Kim, and they actually talk about how she was able to save and make all the money that she needed to study abroad. So I think it's really inspiring, and it also is interesting to see how other people around the world are viewing the education system and how they're making it work to where people are being prosperous, as well as how serious they take it. So they were saying that actually getting into school to teach, to become a teacher, is actually just as hard as getting into med school. So I think that's really interesting, because at the same time, education is, especially different countries value education differently. And in terms of the forefront, with being an at the forefront of being an educator, your job is to make sure that people are learning proper information, as well as being able to make sure that they have the skills that they need to be productive members of society. And I would say, tell me in the comments, like, have you thought about studying abroad? What are your plans or dreams that you've had in terms of pursuing education abroad? I'd really like to know, and I'm curious. So I'll catch you next time. Bye.